Hi, I'm Carlos Figueroa, and welcome to the Forgotten Television Podcast. Along with my co host Joe Riley, we're going to explore some of the shows that you loved as a kid and have forgotten. We're going to start out with one of our favorites, The White Shadow. So join us. How you doing, Joe Riley?
I'm doing very well. Carlos Figueroa, nice to see you.
Great to see you.
And
I,
and go ahead.
I want to introduce myself. Joe and I know each other. We grew up in the wonderful city of St. Louis Park, Minnesota, and we played youth sports together as well as attended junior high school together. And I'm an attorney by trade, but I've kind of later in life here started to doing some writing and some creative work and creating some podcasts.
Hold on here.
And we are very excited about this new show that Joe and I are starting. We're calling it the Forgotten Television Podcast. But before we get into that, Joe, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yep, I'm Joe Riley. I grew up like Carlos in St. Louis Park. If you listen to their Park Bench episodes of their podcast he does with Mike Hammer, Carlos is from North St. Louis Park. I'm from Central, sort of St. Louis Park, and I grew up there. And I've been in the publishing business for a number of years, but like Carlos, I played sports for a number of years, and that's how Carlos and I got together. And I knew of Carlos before I got to know Carlos because back in the day when there was enough kids in those times, I was at the Park Central Little League All-Star game, and we played the Park National All-Stars, and there was this giant first baseman with a mustache at the tender age of 12. So, and that was how I first came across Carlos Figueroa.
Yep, and the ball fields and then the basketball court. And, I think that what brought us together to do this podcast is our love of basketball, at least at the early age when I played. I think you probably carried forth a greater love for the game into adulthood than I have, but we'll let listeners decide that. But the show that we have picked to start out with talking about on our Forgotten Television podcast is The White Shadow.
Yes, The White Shadow. It came out November 27th, which was a Monday in 1979, and it was, or was it 78 actually?
78 was the pilot,
78.
yeah.
I would have been right before my 13th birthday, 3 weeks, and so this was sort of appointment must-see TV at the time for Carlos and I. And I, who was a big basketball player, I played with Carlos on a traveling team in St. Louis Park, and then also in high school, and then I also played 2 years in college. So basketball has always sort of been an important piece for me too, as well.
And Joe knows me. My parents are from Cuba, so I grew up in a baseball household. But at a very, very young age, I was very tall. As Joe said, I was the 12-year-old with the mustache at first base. So basketball came easy to me because I may have had a 10% shooting percentage, but I got all my own rebounds. So I love basketball at the time. And then there was a show. TV at that time. I don't think people realized there weren't very many options.
There weren't. And back then, as I was telling Carlos earlier, there was just a few channels, 11, 9, 5, 4, and 2, which was the PBS station. And we didn't get a VHS player until 1985. So in 78, you either watched the show live on Monday nights or saw it summertime. And reruns. Yeah. So that was kind of how you looked at this too, as well. Yeah. So, and being a sports guy,
and I don't know about you, but at 13, the concept of TV seasons and TV schedules and reruns, I wasn't exactly following it. There's a lot more important stuff to figure out when you're 13 years old.
Exactly.
If you missed it, you probably missed it, and there was nothing beyond that. But White Shadow was appointment television for me. I thought that they were the coolest guys. And let's maybe talk about what the show is. The White Shadow starred an actor by the name of Ken Howard. You probably recognize Ken Howard if you saw him. He has been in numerous things. He stars in the show. In the show, he's a professional basketball player who, due to an injury, can no longer play professional basketball. And so an old college friend of his, who happens to be the principal of a high school in South Central Los Angeles, somehow talks him into moving from Chicago to Los Angeles and being the basketball coach of this group of misfits, we'll say.
Yeah. And the first plot hole is when the principal comes and visits our good friend Ken Reeves in Chicago. It's the middle
Yeah.
of winter, and they refer to it as such in the show. And of course, Ken doesn't. You don't start basketball in the middle of winter, so
Yeah.
the next thing you know, he's starting to coach, and it must be the next fall. But not really much is said about that big time gap
You see,
between when you
that's what
saw
bothered
him.
you. What bothered me is how quickly he goes from being an NBA coach, hey, or an NBA player, to hey, I'm gonna be, because I don't know. I'm gonna guess that high school basketball coaches in Los Angeles in 1979 made, I don't know, 18 grand a year. I would imagine the Bulls paid more, but maybe he budgeted his money and it wasn't an issue. So that, and
Yeah, I think. Go ahead.
the
Yeah.
other thing, and we've dived into the pilot, and we'll come back and give it some proper attention. But one thing that bothered me, the thing that bothered me most, and these are things that when I was 13 went way over my head. He goes out as he's lamenting the end of his NBA career, out on the court in a full suit, which is, all right. I mean, a lot of players, dress up nice, but he's in his dress shoes and he's on the court. And that's a no-no. You don't do that. That's Everybody knew you don't wear your dress shoes on the basketball court, and that really bothered me. And I don't think I noticed it when I was 13 years old.
Funny you should mention that because when I watched it recently, it gave me a little twinge. Like, boy, would whoever the janitor was would get all over me
Exactly.
if that was
Those
the
black marks are
issue.
hard. They're hard to get out.
So, but no, it's being crazy about sports. This is why that show was important to
Yeah.
me. And we didn't have a lot of sports shows that were preceded this, but there were some. So I wanted to kind of give Carlos a little bit of some trivia of some of the
Oh,
sports
perfect. All right.
ones. And I'm going to start with a basketball one and fairly obscure. Do you
Okay.
prefer that I give you the title of the show or give you the description and see if you can name the show?
You know what? I'm going to go with the description.
All right, that's a good choice.
Okay.
All right, so this was just an hour-long show of all different types of stories, but this one happened to be about basketball. And the description is a high schooler, Judge Reinhold of Beverly Hills
Oh,
Cop
sure,
fame.
sure. I would have gone with Fast Times at Ridgemont High, but yeah, same guy.
Yep, becomes good friends with shy new classmate Jeannie Maury, who has just come with their family from Vietnam. Through their tightly knit friendship, she opens up and realizes the struggles that she and her family face as they adapt to the American culture. Inspired by her story, but blinded by what only the two of them understand on a humanitarian level, he writes an acoustic guitar song he titles A Step Too Slow. And just to explain that, he is on the basketball team, and in junior year, he was a star. But with some new players coming on board, they want to go run and gun, and he gets cut. And so this is his
What
creative
year did, can I
outlet.
can I ask what year this aired?
1981.
Man,
The
I
answer has already been given to you by in the description.
I got nothing. I got
It is
nothing,
called
Joe.
A Step Too Slow.
A
It's a
step too
it's a jangly tune. I don't know if this is on
slow.
but that's too as
So
well.
was
And
that
then
just like that was like the name of the show, and then they had lots of different stories. So it wasn't
yeah,
about
so different
basketball all the
stories,
time.
but not about basketball, but it could be about
Okay,
anything too as
all right.
well. Another big one that
I
it was
mean,
yeah, go ahead.
oh no, the only real basketball representation I remember from the era is from a movie, the Robbie Benson movie.
Oh yes, 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 yes.
It now escapes my name, but basically talking about NCAA violations is what they did. One on
Yep,
one, maybe.
one on one, correct.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, that was a fun movie. The basketball was kind of, which
And
I
then
think,
yeah, I'll give you some quick ones here too.
yeah.
So then there's James Caan and Billy D. Williams starred as Chicago Bears
Oh yeah, I
football
mean
player.
that's Brian's song, my friend. Come on.
Oh yes, 1971. Did you know it was that early?
I knew it was early '70s, but '71 is probably earlier. I would have guessed probably '72 or '73.
All right. The next one was the film stars Michael Moriarty as Henry Wiggin, the team star pitcher, and Robert De Niro as Bruce Pearson, his ill-fated catcher and close friend. And this was sort of the follow-up to Brian's song and kind of the arc of sort of the sad movie.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm gonna go with the Roy Campanella story.
No, was called Bang the Drum Slowly.
Bang the Drum Slowly. Okay.
1973, and then this is based on the true story about the relationship between Penn State football player John Capoliati Jr. and his younger brother Joey, who has leukemia.
Oh, okay.
And then that one was 1977, Something for Joey.
Something for Joey. All right.
And that was another one that kind of was a big one for me. And then the last one I'll just talk about was another after-school special television show starring Scott Baio and Lance Kerwin as hockey players. And that was The Boy Who Drank Too Much.
Oh, one of those after-school specials. Nice.
So these were sort of the ones that were formative, and then you took it where it was all basketball and all one thing.
Yeah, it was something else. And we didn't have words for it, but it was much more, the plots were much better than a lot of the shows. I mean, it was prestige television before prestige television. I mean, there was substance abuse. There was, police and African American interaction. There's, whatever youthful problems and school problems. And, I mean, it was a silly TV show from the 70s, but some pretty hardcore topics they tackled. I mean, it wasn't just fluff. It wasn't solve a murder in 25 minutes kind of a thing.
Yeah, and then there was even humor attached to some of that seriousness. And as you know, by the end of the pilot, Coolidge is arrested for borrowing a car.
Yes, that is exactly it. I remember, and I have no idea where it is. I don't remember. It was not Coolidge. I think it was Thorpe, but may have been Haywood. They got arrested for shoplifting a hibachi stove.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm trying to think about the logistics of stealing a hibachi stove.
Yeah.
And your reaction is Ken Reeves' reaction. He's just like, come on.
Exactly. And it's amazing. Go ahead. Yeah.
Let me ask you this, because I do not have, I have sort of proof, but I feel like the conversations between the coach and teachers and authorities to let things slide, let a guy play, let's not worry about grades so much. I have a feeling that those are based on real conversations.
It was kind of shocking a little bit, right? How the vice principal, Joan Pringle, the woman who's very difficult but with a heart of gold, that comes up. She's one of the characters who played in all 54 episodes. Made the bad grades disappear because the mere fact that, hey, if we take basketball away for them, what are they going to do?
I actually, I had heard stories. I'm not going to name any names, but if anybody wanted to do the research and follow the thread of this, they wouldn't have a hard time picking it up. But our high school, you went to the Catholic school in town, but our public high school had some pretty famous athletes, including some that played professionally and were very outstanding in high school. The story goes, and once again, this is the story. This is nothing that I have documented, but the story goes that he didn't have to do any homework. People either did it for him or he got grades. And I'm not shocked by that, because after I had graduated, I had a strong relationship with a teacher, and he needed something he was doing something about don't drink and drive, whatever the kids' version of that is, and he needed some graphics, and I had access to some of my dad's equipment, so I made it. So I'm at the high school, right after classes end. I've already graduated. I'm bringing that stuff, and the counselor kind of steps into the office and says to the teacher, "Well, what are we going to do about Susie?" It's like, well, I don't know. She didn't do the work. It's like, if you fail her, she's just not going to come back. He's like, what are you telling me? He goes, well, if you fail her, she's not going to come back. So you might as well just pass her so she can have the degree. This was not an athlete, but I was witness to that conversation. And so I firmly believe that particularly, thinking about, I don't know, high school football in Texas, that somebody doesn't get benched because they got a D in English. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, there were stories back in 1984, even like Creighton University in
Hmm.
Nebraska used to be a big powerhouse basketball.
Yeah,
They kind of ended basketball for a while because one of their players had to go back to the third grade and
yeah,
learn how to read.
wow, yeah.
So all of those things, especially in that era of time,
Yeah, and this is,
was
I always like to take time whenever I have an audience, even if it's an audience of one, to rail against the NCAA. And so I'm going to continue to rail against the NCAA because they are making millions off of kids and they don't give a damn.
yeah.
Um, all these sports make money for people, and it's just not getting.
Yeah. Should we take a step back and kind of give a nice big overview of the White Shadow other than the
Yeah,
coach?
absolutely. Why don't you take a crack at
Yeah.
that?
So Ken Reeves is the coach. He, as Carlos mentioned, was played for the Bulls, comes to Central South Los Angeles, and there's a large recurring cast of characters who are his players. There's African Americans, which is the majority, but they also have some Mexican Americans too as well. A
Yep,
few Caucasian kids, a
yep,
Caucasian Jewish kid too as well is
yep,
on the team. So
yep.
it's a veritable United Nations
It is a
on this particular team, and it is, and as Carlos has alluded to too as well, they deal with some very serious issues. Carlos talked about drinking, stealing. There's also teen pregnancy that we'll talk about in some of these particular ones too as well. And so it was very pretty cutting edge at the time. And as I mentioned, there's 54 episodes over 3 seasons. Bruce Paltrow of
yes.
Gwyneth Paltrow's father was the showrunner, and Stephen Bochco of Hill Street Blues
Yep,
was one
the
of the
pilot, right?
writers as that too as well. And then
Yeah.
it was produced by the Mary Tyler Moore,
You know,
which, because since we're from Minnesota and we have an
yep.
inferiority complex, anything that's
Yeah,
associated
it's
with
that makes
Minnesota.
the show one of us.
That's right. And that was funny what they did with the logo at the end of the credits. They had a
Yeah.
little cat dribbling
Yep.
that
Yep.
too
The
as well.
MTM, the MTM kitty. Yep.
Yep. And if you watch the pilot, Carlos already mentioned that Ken's old friend, who was principal at that South Central High School, Jason Bernard was his name, was played
Yep.
by an actor by the name of Jim Willis. But don't get used to him if you watch that first episode, because he's not in the rest of them. He gets replaced by another actor named Ed Bernard, no relation, but his best friend. So
Oh wow.
it revolves around Ken Reeves and these kids, and I just thought they were the coolest kids, and
Yes.
it was just one of those things where I'd never seen this on TV, and the only thing that I can compare it to, and Carlos, if you can dredge up in his memory banks. When
Yeah.
we played traveling basketball, one of the stops that we made was to the Hospitality House
Oh yeah.
in,
Yeah.
in, in North Minneapolis, and I
Yep.
just remember, which was pretty predominantly African American,
Yeah.
and you'd have all of these suburban kids
Yeah.
from St. Louis Park go
Yeah.
there, and did not the culture shock for us
Yeah. Yep.
going into that sort of pit of people right on you and screaming and yelling
Hmm.
was a lot, and it was. So that's kind of was sort of my sort of kind of like, oh, so this Carver's a
Yeah.
little bit what
You know
this is
what?
what it is for Minneapolis.
My kid brain made that same connection when we're playing them. Right? I actually wanted to, and one of the things we haven't talked about, and one of the parts that I loved at 13. Now I don't know how I feel about it. Was they would always sing old Temptation songs.
Oh yeah, yep,
My girl, they would sing in the shower,
yep.
and there was always a lot of singing in the shower. And I can tell you that I have never ever broken out in song in a locker room shower ever.
Yeah, the one bit of Hollywood that
Yeah,
try
but
to
it
make
was
this.
fun, right? I mean, I thought it was
Yeah,
so cool. I mean, these guys were smooth. I mean, Coolidge could sing. He could do the bass line in "My Girl." I mean, and he's a superstar basketball player. He's everything I wanted to be.
there you go. And if you want to get to the zeitgeist, in 1980, the U.S. Parent Teacher Association cited this as one of the best primetime TV programs for family viewing, which, as when Carlos is going to talk a little bit more about that pilot, it's not for the faint of heart. Some of that language to 2026
It
years,
is, yes,
and it holds an 8.0 IMDb rating too as well, so it's well
which is
regarded.
actually really good. It's
Yeah,
really good for a TV show from that era that is not considered, one of the greats.
exactly.
It's
And then one of the best things that I forgotten totally about this or never knew But
Mhm.
Carlos, do you remember those old ESPN humorous promos that would happen?
Yes, I remember they did one with Reeves and I think Coolidge.
Correct. And
Yeah.
I watched that yesterday, and I
Yeah.
don't know if we can post that somewhere when
You
we
know what?
post
I
this,
will.
but
I will put a link in the show notes to that commercial because that.
that
First
it
of
was
all,
it was
first of all, ESPN. I don't know what you guys are thinking. Find the person who created those and bring them back because they were amazing. But I remember the car, and I just I because I felt like it was made for me, right? Because I'm thinking I'm the only person on the planet that remembers this show.
exactly. And so when I saw that this day, I mean, my heart, it was funny and it was clever. And, here Coolidge, obviously older than he was in the TV show,
Yeah.
was just,
Yep.
it was just wonderful. So it was great to see. So, but
Let
yeah,
me
so
take a
those,
step back because I want this show to to introduce what we're going to be talking about, but also introduce ourselves a little bit. And I mentioned to you, and I mentioned earlier, I mean, I got into basketball because I was tall, but I never played any basketball in high school beyond that, but I played elementary school basketball, then traveling team basketball for like 3 years, and then when that ended after eighth grade, between what happened to me is between seventh and eighth grade, I went from the tallest to the sixth tallest on the team, same kids. So I peaked early. So basketball was never my sport, but I think you continued to play it long into adulthood. So what's your relationship to basketball? I'm assuming it's your number one sport.
yeah. So this was for my life up until COVID. I played basketball at least once a week, pretty much from the age of 13 to the age of 55 years
Yeah.
old or 56 years old. So basketball was quite, it was my refuge, right? In a sense, too. Like a lot of people who they're going to go get therapy, they're going to do what, but no matter what the troubles are with your life, when I step between those lines, either playing a 5-on-5 game
Mm-hmm.
or a 3-on-3 game of basketball, the walls would come up, right? And I
Yeah.
would think about anything
Yep.
but playing that game at that
Mm-hmm.
particular point in time. Basketball is indelibly something that is ingrained in me. And when COVID stopped all that, I played a little bit afterwards, but then, it's getting older
Yeah.
and, injuries or whatever it may be.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just
You
like,
did something that was a little less impact.
yeah, a little less impact. And I just didn't, the fire in the belly finally
Yeah.
kind of petered
Yeah.
out about that.
Yeah.
But so it's an important thing to me. And, I've, that, and so that's why it's been something that's been a part of my life. And, not only just playing it, but people I've met, coaches I've had. We both had Mike Gavrin, I believe, was the
Yeah.
traveling coach at that time
Yep. Yeah.
in the late '70s there. So
Mm-hmm.
it's been something, a gift that
Yeah.
I had.
Yeah. I kind of feel the same way about baseball, but I am not someone that played baseball, and I don't know if you remember from my neighborhood, and then also from youth sports, but Craig Breitkreitz, a former
Oh
classmate
yeah,
of ours, I think played town ball into his 50s. To me, that's just, and I think
Craig
that
was.
Pat Nelson also played well into his 50s too. So good for them for staying in shape. But, I appreciate that because, like I said, this show really imprinted on me at the right time. And it's stuck with me because I feel like there's some special stuff there. Now, our plan is not to do a straight all 54 episodes, one episode a show, normal rewatch. I think there's a lot of good stuff to talk about. I think maybe 3 or 4 episodes a season for the 3 seasons, so I don't know, 10, 8, 12, somewhere. We'll see when we run out of conversation. But one of the things we're on the lookout for is what potential other shows to do next. My personal preference is not to do something like Sopranos because I don't think the world needs a 50th or 500th Sopranos podcast, but something more obscure from the 70s and 80s, something that, yeah, that was great. I hadn't thought about that in a long time. And, giving some love to some of these shows. And I think White Shadow fits that like a glove. So
Exactly, agreed. So
I'm
yeah,
very much
and
looking forward to doing this show with you, Joe, and uh, sharing your thoughts on what's going on in the basketball world. You're my connection to what happens. I know that the Timberwolves are in the playoffs. I know there's a playoff game coming up this evening.
correct.
Let me know. I believe that they're playing the Denver Nuggets.
That
Huh?
is correct. The
They
series is
have
tied
like
1-1.
that one guy who's like really good. His name's like Nocek or Novik or Johan or something like that. What's his
Nikola
name?
Jokic.
Yeah, he's really good, right?
Yep. He's the
Yeah.
Carlos Figueroa of
Well, no,
1978.
no. Well, okay, baby, 1978 sixth grade
Yeah.
basketball. But so, what do you think? Are the Wolves gonna get past them?
It's I think right now we've played 30 playoff games in the last 3 years against
Yeah,
Denver.
yeah.
We're 15 and 15.
Wow.
Last playoff series, it was a 7 game series. We won game 7 by after being down 20 points with about 6 or 7 minutes to
Okay.
go. Tonight's going to be a big game. If we win, and if we can, it's kind of like those things. If you can crush their spirit,
So this one's at Target Center, right?
correct. Yep.
And
Yep.
they played two at Denver and they split, which is what you want to
Correct.
do on the
Yep.
road in playoffs, right? I mean, I'm applying baseball logic, so if I'm off here on how it works in basketball, you tell me. So they're in a good shape. I mean, winning tonight is key because being up 2-1, you can be loose for game 4, right?
Yeah.
That's what you want.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it'll be interesting to see too as well about us trying to hear on the way home a little bit about something's going on with Denver. I think somebody got hurt or something's
Oh,
not
yeah?
playing, but so we'll see what happens. But gun goes off at 8:30.
And it's the one last question because I'm fascinated by it. I see lots of social media from the Wolves. They're good trash talkers, aren't they? Like the Timberwolves team is elite trash talkers, or am I wrong about that?
Well, this it has come up recently because when we won the last game, a reporter asked Jade McDaniels, one of the better defenders, and they said none of those guys can guard, so we just all take him to the hoop, and so that's why. And so that's like that's as they would say in any sport, that's bulletin board material.
Well, let me see. This will give you how much I'm aware of basketball. To me, the funniest joke that I can throw in there is, "Hey, his name is Dirk," because there's no D in Dirk. That's how current my basketball humor is. So, but I appreciate you keeping me updated. I now have a connection to pro basketball through you. This is our first episode here. I think that we've told the folks who we are and what we're going to try to do with this show. Is there anything that we didn't talk about that you thought maybe we should have included, Joe?
No, I think we're good. I know we can get into a little bit about some plot things, who these great characters are, and
maybe we'll do that. Maybe we'll start next episode. We'll do the pilot, but then we'll break into here are the kids on the team basically,
exactly.
and go through that, and then maybe Ken Reeves' introduction because the first time he meets his team, I'm shocked that he didn't go running away.
And then and kind of a little bit about the pilot.
Yeah.
There are some coaches asking for beer from 17-year-old kids,
Yes,
and
yes.
and then coaches going to a place where a kid works and
Yeah.
helps humiliate his boss. So there are some
I,
things
I
that can be
thought
talked about.
there was a joke that could have been very early on that could have been interpreted as being racially insensitive, but I won't repeat it. I'll repeat it to you off the air to see if you had the same impression I had with it. But I appreciate your time, Joe. I appreciate getting together and talking about The White Shadow and the Forgotten Television podcast.
Yeah.
And we look forward to making more of these. And, this one will be out probably end of next week. We'll want to throw out a couple episodes at once. But
Exactly.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Joe. And thanks, everybody, for listening.
Yep. Thanks, everyone, for listening. And Carlos, always a pleasure. And till next time.
All right. Go Wolves.
Go Wolves.